All right, so the New York Knicks with an amazing bounce back performance in game two of their season after a rough season opener against the Boston Celtics. I did feel like people were overreacting just a bit to that performance, as people always do. It's like tradition for people to count out a team after game one of the season, especially given that game one of the season for most contenders is against other contenders. Like, it's really easy to watch those matchups and say, see, this team isn't ready, right? It's really easy to make that judgment after just one game, but it's 1 out of 82. It's ridiculous to go off the rails with these extreme narratives. Look at the Knicks, amazing bounce back, amazing answer to the critics. And there are still going to be big time questions to ask as the season continues. But this was impressive. For one, I was very impressed with their offense, specifically the play of their new big three, Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, and Mikal Bridges. And we'll start here with Jalen Brunson. I could say this a trillion times. Everybody's already said it. I'm not saying anything different than anybody else. Jalen Brunson is ridiculous, right? His mix of physicality and skill at the point guard position is so unique. How many other point guards right now in the NBA are able to make that blend happen so perfectly, right? Or how many point guards really throughout the course of NBA history are so prolific from a scoring standpoint, skills wise, and also from a physicality standpoint? His ability to have this grit and grind style of play on the offensive end where he can bruise guys, bump into their bodies, and do that type of stuff while mixing it with this ridiculous deep bag of offensive skill. It's amazing. It really is. And as I said, there aren't a lot of players quite like that. And also considering that he is very undersized. And we've also seen so many teams over the last couple of seasons try so many different player archetypes and put so many different type of guys on him in one-on-one scenarios. And there isn't a type of defender that we've seen the most likely to be able to slow down Jalen Brunson. He always has an answer regardless of who coaches are sticking on him, right? They can put those shorter, like 6'4" guys on him, like an Aaron Nesmith, like we saw here today, and that was primarily who was guarding him in the playoffs last year. Or they can try to switch and put taller guys on him to maybe, I guess, make it tougher for him to get his shot off, but that doesn't really make much of a difference. Like, there isn't one type of player archetype that is built to contain Jalen Brunson. He has an answer for pretty much any one-on-one matchup, right? And even if he starts off a game slow, he has such a great ability to find his rhythm out of nowhere. That's what makes him so tough to guard. Is you may think he's out of rhythm, and then he can find it at the snap of a finger. He's just one of those guys. Amazing stuff from him. And also, like, thinking about this, you can't even double team him. And that's really kudos to how the Knicks built this roster, because he can get the ball out of his hands. He can go find other guys, and those guys outside of him know how to make plays, right? Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns now, OG Anunoby, right? Like, those players know how to make things happen. If Jalen Brunson is double teamed and those types of things, and you have those situations, they know how to operate outside of that. It's not like a possession stops after Jalen Brunson is double teamed to slow down. Other guys know how to make things happen outside of that. So amazing stuff here from Jalen Brunson. They had no answer for him. Once again, he was just an amazing closer. Right now, in my opinion, he's one of the 5 best closers in the entire league. Like, I think he is well within that conversation, and he did it again here against the Pacers. Over to Mikal Bridges. A lot of people were giving him a very tough time after game one. People were critiquing the jumper, and I get it, because the jumper does look very weird and unconventional, and I don't know why he changed it, because he has generally been an elite catch and shoot shooter, but that's something that I don't understand. I've never been able to shoot the ball like Mikal Bridges. So that's a decision that himself and his trainers made, and I trust that it is going to work. But in game one, it did not have a great showing. Comes back today, and I loved how he looked, right? So one thing we've seen is the Knicks will put him in motion, maybe have him running off like these baseline screens or whatever the case may be, and have him kind of curl and pop out in the mid-range area and have him work from there. So there's going to be a lot of usage of Mikal Bridges in the mid-range. He was prolific in that area, and there are going to be times where maybe Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns were off the floor, and he's running with the second unit, and he is operating as the primary shot creator, kind of in the same vein as he did last season in Brooklyn, where he had a super high volume of shot creation, heavy possessions handled by him, right? I was kind of wondering about that. How much of Mikal Bridges' shot creation is going to be translatable to him being on a contender, because I can see why he was shot creating a lot last season for a bad Nets team. But from what we saw here in game two, there is going to be a healthy amount of Bridges shot creation. That's just a part of his game that he's added, that he's gotten better at. Never really showed it off at Villanova, never really showed it off at a super, super high level and super high volume with Phoenix. But that was a trend last season, and it's going to continue to be a trend here in New York. That is a new aspect of Bridges' game. Let's get used to it today here against Indiana. Just did an amazing job at getting to his spots and getting to his shots. Again, getting to his spots. That's something that a lot of young scoring-minded players haven't really mastered just yet, right? Like Jason Tatum had to get there. He came in the league as this really talented, raw scorer. The reason JT got so much better over the years is because he knew his attack points. Bridges, as a second-year shot creator, like this is only the second season where Bridges is probably going to be used as a shot creator in a high volume. He looks like he knows what areas he wants to attack the most. And we saw that here today in this game. Lastly, going over to Karl Anthony Towns, amazing stuff. So I talked about this in my last video when reacting to that Celtics game. One thing that we knew was going to happen is we knew that Thibodeau was going to post up Karl Anthony Towns a lot more than what we've seen over the last couple of seasons. When he was in Minnesota last season and the season before that, we didn't see a ton of Karl Anthony Towns playing the low post. A lot of what he was doing was relegated to outside the three-point line. He wasn't even shot creating as much. Thibodeau really trusts Karl Anthony Towns as a shot creator. There are a lot of possessions where he was posting up, where he was also facing up. And then there's also your Karl Anthony Towns pick and roll and pick and pop scenarios. I love the ways and the versatility in how you can utilize Karl Anthony Towns within your offense. And that's a great reminder for us when it comes to how great he is as a player, right? As an offensive talent in this league, because a lot of people forgot. Hell, I forgot. I wasn't a fan of Karl Anthony Towns over the last couple of seasons, and that's pretty much his fault because of the foul trouble in the playoffs and the inconsistent performances. But there is a reason as to why he is a multiple-time All-Star, a former number one overall pick. He does have a vast skill set, and we are seeing the number of different ways that you can utilize Cat within an offensive system. You can put him in the mid-range area and ask him to face up. You can put him in screen and roll scenarios, and maybe he can pop back out into space, and you can also post him up and get him down there in the low post. I've seen more Karl Anthony Towns jump hooks in 2 games than I felt that I've seen over the last couple of seasons. Like, he is getting down there to his spots, great touch around the rim. I'm loving this stuff from Cat, and there is this really physical, aggressive style of play that he has kind of shown off here the last couple of games here for New York. And I'm not saying he didn't have that, right? But it's a little different this year. You can tell the vibe is a little bit different. Now that he kind of has the interior to himself a little bit more, there's going to be room for him to play that really physical brand of basketball. He's banging guys down low and all of those things. I love it. Great here for Karl Anthony Towns early on. And as I said, this was the way that you wanted this Knicks offense to look. Great balanced scoring. Everybody played their role at a high level. Loved what we saw here from New York. Over to Indiana. Not a great game at all. I think the biggest storyline was the rough performance from Tyrese Halliburton. If I'm looking at the numbers correctly in this game for Tyrese Halliburton, and I'm checking player stats here, 0 points for Halliburton. No points. So my issue with Halliburton is, for one, I'm a big fan of his game, right? Taller point guard, amazing passer, can heat up. But how great is Tyrese Halliburton as a shot creator? Because Indiana is going to need that from him this season if they want to repeat their success last season, especially in a tougher Eastern Conference where everybody's going to be healthy. Like, the fact of the matter is, they faced a lot of injured teams in the postseason. That's just a fact. That's not anything I'm just saying to discredit them. They did. So one big thing is going to come down to for Indiana is how consistently can Tyrese Halliburton get to his spots offensively? Can he be a guy who can be a consistent shot creator in big playoff game scenarios? I feel like there are times where Halliburton kind of shies away from that, right? Where he's not able to kind of get into his shots and get to his spots as much. And I think today was a perfect example. And we also saw that a bit last season in the playoffs. I remember seeing it and being like, I feel like Halliburton has to work a bit on his shot creation, right? I think that's the biggest difference between him and Jalen Brunson, because that was the debate I was having at a point in time last season, especially in the beginning, where Halliburton had this amazing offensive stretch. I was debating JB versus Halliburton. But one thing that separates JB from Halliburton is that JB knows better how to take over big games and knows how to attack his spots. Pascal Siakam cannot be the only guy. I think there's got to be a thing where Halliburton is going to be a consistent shot creator for this team. As I said, there are times and stretches where he is there and he's doing that at a high level, but there are also times where he's not able to get there and do it at a high level, right? So I think he's inconsistent as a shot creator. And the question is that his game? Is that where he could be effective at? Or is he more of a true point guard type of guy where you need to surround him with other great shot creators? That's the mystery right now with Tyrese Halliburton, is what type of player is he on a contender? That's the thing. So we'll see. As I said, not a great game from him, not an amazing game from Siakam. Mathurin was good off the bench, but again, how sustainable is that going to be? How good is their shot creation going to be? Because that is just going to be simply huge for a team that wants to contend. If you made the East Finals last season, you should be coming in this season to contend. Where is that consistent shot creating coming from for this team? That is going to be a big time question to ask. Simply that. And also some of the interior play. I felt like Karl Anthony Towns and the Knicks as a whole dominated the interior with the rebounding, the offensive rebounding. There was a big discrepancy when it came to that. That is another thing that the Pacers have to work on, because we just saw in the previous game for the Knicks, they got killed themselves on the offensive boards just to come back around and kill Indiana on the offensive boards. So still some questions to ask here for Indiana. But like I said, it is so early. I can't even get into over criticizing them and all of those things. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But amazing big three performance from Cat, Jalen Brunson, and Bridges. And we'll see how sustainable that's going to be for this team. As I said, I love the different ways they're using Cat within the offense. Love the ways they're getting Bridges to his spots. And Jalen Brunson just continues to be one of the best closers in the entire league.